Hey everyone, and welcome to High Energy Podcast. My name is Esteban Gast, and today we have such an incredible guest, such a thrilling conversation I can't wait to have. Someone who we talked a little bit, but you've done so many different things. And part of what's so interesting is it like feels nonlinear. It feels like you were here and here and here. But looking back, there's like these beautiful common threads that tie everything together. So I can't wait to get into it. And I can't wait to talk about what you're doing now in terms of electric vehicle, like innovations, like the ways that you think about it in terms of community building, right? So it's like, it's not just EVs, like here's a car and that's it. But it's like, how do we charge? How do we think about this bigger than just the car? So I can't wait to get into it. Please welcome, put your hands together if you're at home. Clap. We'll know if you clap. For Nicole Landers. Yeah, really good. We'll clap for ourselves. It starts with self-love. How often? Just give it up for yourself. Nicole, something we were talking about before is you grew up in New York, but you mentioned that you like had the connection to gardens in this natural world, which was foreshadowing for what we're going to talk about. But can you tell us about that? You were in New York, but you were like, going to gardens and being good. Where did this come from? What was happening here? This is when you were like a kid.
Totally. I was about 7 years old. But first off, thank you for having me on the show. This is so exciting to be speaking with you, Esteban. You're definitely a climate hero, and your comedy and just how you're out in the world doing what you do and sending good vibes around Mother Earth. So at an early age, I lived in New York City, concrete jungle. One of the 5 boroughs, Queens, is where I grew up. And my dad and I would take the train to the city. And one day we took the train to the city and we end up on the West Side Highway. And I'm like, what are we doing over here? And he had a garden plot in this community garden on the West Side Highway. And he was growing tomatoes and basil and all these things. And I'm like, when were you going to tell us about this? And so all of a sudden I found myself gardening in this little garden plot in this big community garden with tons of other garden plots. And putting my hands in the soil was like one of the first entry points to me really understanding where my food came from.
I love that your dad had like a secret garden.
He did. And it was so like off text for him. Like he was an interior designer, my mom, cosmetologist, very creative people, very welcoming people, all walks of life from in our household. We always ate whole foods though, wasn't allowed fast food as a kid. Like microwaves came out and you were just like, what's that? We're not microwaving our food. Everybody looked at that like, that doesn't do anything for us.
How fun to be raised in a household like that. I feel like maybe one of the lessons when we look at all the really wonderful things you've done is this thought of like being good to the earth, being right, like sustainability, environmentalism, whatever that bucket is, doesn't have to be this sacrifice, which sometimes I think people think, and maybe right, people go like, if I want to live this way, that means I'm not going to have blank. That means I can't eat blank or whatever. And I think something that your work has done and the way you live your life, it feels like, is that you're like, no, this is an additive. This is good. This is like life is richer because of that. Can you speak to that? Because it feels, even when you're describing your childhood, in that you were like, yeah, we wouldn't just go to the beach. We'd be like learning about the world around us. And that meant more fun. That meant more connection to the ocean or whatever that looks like.
You know, for me, I think that you don't have to sacrifice to do your life in a more holistic manner, let's say, or just being a better steward to the environment. And if you can't wrap your head around that, it's like, what makes sense? And I know that some people are born into situations where it's more systemic, but they may not have the ability to get to the beach or the ability to put their hands in soil. So how do we recreate that in the school systems too, right? So it's like, how do you take on the world every day and look at like your choices, right? So what are my choices? And I'm not perfect and I don't want to be perfect. But again, you know, I want to go out and build community. Then I'm going to the farmers markets and I'm talking straight to a farmer and I'm finding out how they grow their food, how they till their land, are they more regenerative? Like, how do they do their business of growing food?
I also just love that the paradigm shift sometimes, and I'm sure your friends, you're like the environmentalist to some of your friends, and they're like, oh, sorry, I ordered from here or whatever. And you're like, that's okay. We're all just trying to do a little bit better.
Yeah, it's like composting. You
Yeah.
can actually compost at home. I stick my compost in the freezer. I live in an apartment building now in Playa Vista, and I just take it down to the green bin and I put it in there
Yeah.
when it's full. That's it. It's pretty simple. It
Yeah.
doesn't go in my trash, and it's actually going to be an ordinance in LA City in July of 26. So we better start educating people, because I don't know how all these people are going to be composting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smaller cities are doing it, like Santa Monica or San Francisco, but there is no way, as we both know. So it's like, again, what you do in your life is what's going to be in your life,
Yeah.
whether it's work, play, whatever it is.
I love it. You were saying opportunities for people to get their hands in soil. And you mean that metaphorically and literally, because you started this really cool community garden that feels like the intersection of a bunch of these things that you're talking about, of like community building and like literally having people connected to nature and growing food and understanding food. It also feels like it's like your dad did great. His legacy is complete. If he had the secret community garden and you're out here starting community gardens. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah.
Starting that, why you started it, because it's so fascinating.
Goes back to community. So I was living in Venice Beach at the time, and was very much a part of this group of friends that was very into yoga and wellness. Also while I was building my career, because I think, I'm also very career oriented, and but community is a big word for me, as you can tell in our conversation before this conversation. And we just got together and started to talk about what's the one thread that binds us together. Besides music and art, I would say food. So when you look at food, you go, okay, where does it come from? How do we get it? Can we make it more local? And how local can we make it? So we built 80 garden food boxes on the streets of Venice. That's how it started. And we didn't ask permission.
No
and then from there,
way. Wait, when you mean, what does that look?
80 food boxes. So imagine 3 by 8 foot wood garden boxes on the streets of Venice, on the corners where it wasn't like private, but kind of public, and wide enough on the streets, like those 6 foot. You have a 6 foot capacity on the street width where you can put this garden box.
Yeah.
Truthfully, you probably should ask permission, and sometimes you just have to beg for forgiveness.
Yeah.
So we got together our community neighbors, and this was the time in Venice where there was an influx of change. You had Snapchat there, Google, so it was kind of tearing apart the old Venice and rebuilding a new Venice, and then how do you tie people together? Again, back to community. So this is what we started, and then we approached LAUSD to get involved in some of their schools, and by happy accident, we met somebody that knew a school in Watts that had a plot of land that they weren't using with like 50 fruit trees that were laying dormant on the backside of the only public middle school in Watts. And here I am, a New Yorker, and I'm white, and I go to Watts. And I got a lot of like, why are you here?
Yeah.
And how can we trust you? And what are you doing here? And I said, I just want to understand like how we can bring community together, and, this intergenerational idea is that we can build something together. And so we went to the principal and we told him what we built. And he's like, okay, well, how are we going to activate the community? I said, well, let's start at the neighborhood council level and just go and share what we want to do, and then meet with your PTA. And the PTA was nanas and aunties of families, right?
Yeah.
Like these intergenerational, like Mexican, African-American, all walks of life coming together to have these conversations. And little by little, they trusted us. We built community. We worked with other nonprofits in the community. We hired local as best as we could. And we started to build a framework around this garden. And the next thing you knew, we had an acre farm.
Wow.
And all the kids were coming together, no matter what families they came from, if they could talk, if they could not talk, all the things that go in this underserved community that I felt like needed access to healthy food, and they wanted it. The kids wanted it. If they grew the kale, they ate the kale, right? And we started to work with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, because I was like, okay, how do we put in clean energy and lower greenhouse gases in communities like Watts, where there's high asthma rates, high obesity rates, and then bring in clean energy technology into the garden, teaching kids about water, energy, and how they reduce their own footprint by even growing food.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, there is no way, and you can see all the rappers on the streets, from the Cheetos to the Starbucks to the Coca-Cola rings and caps. Like, this is what you saw in the community, and you could see that that's what was a lot of the food choices: fast food and processed snacks.
Do you remember any individual students or student stories that's like the first time that maybe someone is farming or connecting to the food around them. And it can be big picture or like a specific individual that was like, oh my gosh, this is lettuce. I've seen this before and it comes from the ground. Because I feel like that's, I mean, no matter where you grow up, we're just so disconnected from our food.
There was one student, Rudy, who really taught me a lot. And he was at the middle school and then he went to Jordan High School, and we had an internship program with a nonprofit working with Jordan High School where we hired young people to help after school and on the weekends to tend to the garden, tend to the clean tech that we had in there around water reclamation and gray water systems and energy systems. And Rudy followed us from the middle school to the high school program. And then he went to SMC, and one of his minors was environmentalism. So like in the environment.
Wow.
And, you know, you learn about the built environment, again, from what you're given. And so he was given an opportunity. He took it all the way through and he learned a lot. And he made more money with us than he would at Little Caesars Pizza, let's say. And that was what was so exciting, working with LAUSD, breaking through glass ceilings, getting them to understand. And of course, we want it in the food in the cafeteria, but the workaround was we just put it together in the garden with crock pots and hot plates. And we found our workaround to create meals like Thanksgiving. Like we always had things. Then one day we decided to get together with the Sierra Club. And why I'm bringing this to the fold is because it showed them that there are environmental groups out there that want to support communities like Watts, want to support communities even like Santa Monica, right? Doesn't matter. They want to support how we live our lives with air quality, with healthy choices, with lowering greenhouse gases. And we did an event with EVs, a ride and drive event at the garden. How cool is that?
That's so
And we
amazing.
used the outside of the garden as the place to do the ride and drives. And I was explaining to the kids, there's no combustible engine here. And so that disgusting fumes from all these cars, right, and trucks are not getting in the garden if we went EV.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this is cool. I
Yeah.
want an EV.
EVs should be and are pretty easy sells for like kids. Because you're like, check this car out. No engine. Turns on with a button, you know.
And it's
kinda
got a cool
spaceship
tech
vibes.
screen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
And it's got like the hum, like the EV, you know, because they have to make noise. So it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, most people don't know that 39% of our greenhouse gases comes from transportation. Most people in cars today, right, they're traveling alone.
yeah.
So how do we reduce our own carbon footprint? And that's something else we talked about in the garden is like, how do you reduce your carbon footprint? There is no way. So do you take the plastic straw? Do you take the plastic lid if you're going to drink that soda? And you're going to go to McDonald's and grab it? I'm not telling them they can't go to McDonald's. I'm telling them what's their choice with it.
Yeah.
If you're going to Starbucks, do you really need the lid? Unless you're going in a car, like if you're just walking with it, why do you need a lid? Just
Yeah.
drink it. I mean, I don't mean to divert, but we could talk about so many things. And I'm just like, I just get
like,
into this
solutions are
conversation.
there. It's-
Right. And you
it's a
talk
little
about
bit
that
of-
on this
yeah.
show. It's like there are solutions.
There's so many
There's
solutions.
innovations. There's the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. There's young companies like ours doing innovative things. So I really would love to jump into what I'm
I
doing
was
today.
about to say, I was like, the reason why you are so knowledgeable on all these EV things is right now you're with Green Wealth Energy, and it's like electric vehicle. Yeah, talk to us about what that is, because you're
Okay.
doing really cool things and
Yes.
thinking outside the box and meeting needs. It's phenomenal. Okay,
Well,
tell us about it.
through the community of sustainability in LA, I met an incredible woman, Ariel Fan. She is our CEO and founder of Green Wealth Energy. And first of all, I love the name. And the green and the wealth and the energy has to do with inclusivity and building community. And also, wealth is about heart, soul, not just about money. Having love in your life, having good choices in your life, building a sustainable future, building a clean energy future. It is now.
Yeah.
And it starts with you and I, and starts again with our choices. So Green Wealth, going back to that, we are a woman minority-owned business. We started out in Pasadena. Ariel grew up in Southern California in the Pasadena area. And we met at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. I was working out of there with the garden program as a hub for me to have an office every day. And besides going to the garden is that office, right? And that workspace, which was, my pleasure place. And we just started talking. And I had also worked partly in lighting with my consulting firm and really understood the built environment and getting into architecture and design and like, what is the lowest hanging fruit that we can support in building design? And I think it's lights, especially the ones that are on 24/7 in a building, right? So we met, and then I got involved in EV charging working at a hardware company, and then that kind of ended. And so I called her up and said, what are you doing now? Because I knew about Green Wealth, and we reconnected, and I've been there almost 3 years.
That's so good. And Green Wealth, you're doing a bunch of things, but a lot of it is like infrastructure for charging.
Correct.
Because electric vehicles are everywhere, but they obviously need to charge somewhere. And like everything, there's inequalities in who has access to a charger and charging and things like that. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about
Absolutely. So going backwards, and I'd love for you to use the soundbite. So Green Wealth Energy is a woman minority owned EV charging infrastructure company. And what that means is we don't make the hardware, we don't make the software. We help design and implement them to go into the ground. And we work mostly with light duty automobiles, like the ones that you and I drive, right? The ones that the consumer listening to this or the everyday person, this is what we drive. Gas guzzling vehicles that we all drive today need to get off the road.
Yeah.
So we are working with cities, we are working with communities and multifamily housing, hospitals, hospitality, to create infrastructure for EV drivers so that it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to run out of juice in my car and I'm going to get stranded on the side of the road because there's not enough public access to charging. Or I live in California, you and I'm a renter. 44% of Californians are renters. So how are you charging at home?
Yeah.
What if you're a gig driver and you're driving for Uber, Lyft, or DoorDash? How many times do we use that service, right, as consumers? How do we get them in EVs? Another car on the road. So how do we trickle this down to make EVs, A, more affordable, which there are those like the Nissan Leaf or the Bolt, and you can still have your high-priced SUV and drive EV. The only way we're going to do it is companies like Green Wealth building out infrastructure, and it is so important. But we do it a little differently than most. There's a secret sauce.
What's the secret sauce?
We think about it holistically.
You think about it holistically.
Yes.
Yeah.
We design for the end user. So the site host has a say, meaning the property owner, whether it's a city property or it's a multifamily building with 200 units. We help them to design it in the way that it works with their electrical infrastructure. And then we also think about the end user, the consumer, you and I, and the audience. How are we going to use this service? And how do we also make it more affordable than public charging on the street?
Yeah.
So these level 2 chargers are meant for overnight charging or 4 to 6 hours of charging to get a full charge in a vehicle today. And so we see this as a solution because you go to work. Most people go to work in an office. It's about an 8-hour workday. They're parking their car for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours in universities. Kids are in school all day. They need to park. So you're thinking about it from a holistic lens of like, how can we help the end consumer to charge, make it easy, make it affordable, and make it inclusive? That's the key.
Yeah.
Not making it siloed and only putting it in areas where cars are now, but how do we get people to adopt them in these communities, in these under-resourced communities where I've worked before? So guess what? My life's come full circle. I am the director of partnerships and communications at Green Wealth. So I get to use the lens that I have built in my career path as how I outward face this company, tell our story, bring it back home to the learnings of the community that I'm working in. So we build public-private partnerships. So in my work, we built this program with LA County called Charge for All with the California Energy Commission. And how SoCal REN's involved is we're talking to all of the COGs. So we're speaking to Gateway Cities COG or San Gabriel COG. And through SoCal REN's network, we're able to get cities and communities activated to introduce us to site hosts, to these multifamily property owners, and to the city's programs, and to that utilities programs, and connect dots. Again, public-private partnership. So this is so important to work together. So whether you work in local government or you work in a private company, how do you think outside the box to create change and climate solutions together is so important. So I'm grateful to LA County, I'm grateful to SoCal REN to be able to do the work with them and to work with the people that are so passionate about what they do. We built a program with LA County and we went to the California Energy Commission. They had a grant program called REACH, and we're part of REACH 2, which is bringing accessible charging to multifamily housing. It's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we put in this application with LA County, and it was really about taking buildings mostly in disadvantaged communities and low-income housing and putting in charging, and also working in market rate because renters need charging. HOAs need charging. And it is very expensive, the infrastructure part. It's not an inexpensive model. It is an expensive model. The chargers are coming down. The infrastructure costs are actually coming down. The rubber is meeting the road. And we're seeing that through grants, so you have public money, through Greenwealth putting up some private funding. So we also act as a green bank to build out these infrastructure programs. And then we're able to go to the site host who has 50 units or more, let's say, because it does pencil out for a business to have more units in a building to put in infrastructure. And we say, what unassigned parking spots can you give us to put in EV charging at no cost to the site host? So there's no charge to that building owner. And they're like, what do you mean free charging?
Yeah.
Nothing's free.
It feels too good to be true.
Correct. But it is. It is true.
It is true.
It is so true.
Good.
And if you're a building owner or an investor in real estate, reach out to Greenwealth because we have a program for you. And then we were able to get Reach 3. So now we have even more of a bucket of money and funding to help support this. And through public and private partnerships, through community groups like USGBC California, Ben Stapleton, who you had on the show, working with groups that are out in the community that are forward-facing with these building owners and forward-facing with residents in these communities, we're listening, who needs this? Who wants this? But also when you think about something like the Olympics. Let's take that, for instance. So like a program like our program with REACH and the California Energy Commission, we called the program Charge for All. What a name. Charge for All. And it's a 4, the number, not the word. But what's so exciting about this is that we're going into communities that are going to need this charging for the Olympics because we've made a commitment to have low impact transportation, to do as much electric transportation and public transportation as possible during these games. Well, what about the Super Bowl? What about the World Cup? Like, this better be an exercise before we do the Olympics to see if we're gonna have 3,000 EV buses here.
Yeah.
And reverse that. How are people gonna get to the buses? There's gonna have to be a place where people are gonna have to drive a couple of miles to get on this public transportation system, right? We still don't always have that walkability to the public transportation yet in the city, not like New York City, where I come from. So again, we're listening to these communities and they're telling us, we're driving locally or we're driving 2 hours on the freeway to get to our hospitality job. And we're going through hundreds of dollars a month in gas. And now the state is having a new tax, 65% more a gallon on gas. So when you think about it, charging at anywhere from 45 cents to 75 cents a kilowatt makes much more sense than going to the gas station and filling up your SUV for $100.
Only got cheaper.
But the other thing is you'll have some people pushing back and saying, isn't electricity expensive? And it is. But one thing I will say about electricity is it is less expensive than gas. And also a lot of the utilities like SoCal Edison, our COO came from SoCal Edison 22 years. She's incredible. She started a program called the Charge Ready program for commercial and residential charging. And when we look at it, SoCal Edison and others like SoCal created a EV time of use kilowatt hour amount of money that you would spend. So it's if you have a meter that you can justify in your multifamily housing or at the point of entry in like a public parking lot downtown Santa Monica, we can get a time of use rate for the EV charging that's different than in your own house or in your own commercial building, let's say. So they're working with us to create these infrastructures in cities and communities and in these multifamily communities. So hence Green Wealth Energy working for everybody, creating an inclusive model, creating a holistic way of thinking about business, and it's sustainable.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a little bit of the idea of like to be sustainable doesn't inherently require sacrifice in this way, right? If you're, a property manager or landlord, whatever that looks like, or if you're a resident there, or if you're using it, or if you're building a business around it, you're like, great, this can be a thing that is helpful and valuable. And the future doesn't have to be like everyone, we have to do less and have less so we can survive in this way. It's like, wait a minute, we can just think about it differently. Nicole, we have a few questions before you leave from people that have submitted. Some of this is
submitted questions.
Isn't that
Who
fun?
Submitted a question?
People, team members, people that we post. We're like, hey, we're talking to this person. Any questions?
I love it.
Okay, so these are questions. This first question is from Lazar in Rosemead.
Lazar and Rosemead. Okay.
I see so much bad news about the climate. I wonder if you, a climate communications guru, see more good climate news than the rest of us. If so, how can I also see more good climate news? What a fun question, because it's not even like, hey, give me one fun, positive climate news. It's like, where do you go to find consistent climate good news? That's such a good question.
Unfortunately, social media has clouded us, right? If I look up rugs, all I'm going to see is rugs for days. So if I only read news about a certain situation happening in our own backyard right now, I'm only going to see the negative of that all the time. The worst of it. Absolutely. The worst of it, where it just makes your stomach turn. No matter who you are, you just cannot believe that this is happening, whether it's the fires, whether it's deportation, all of it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So how do you find the balance in that? I think that I like getting my news from nonprofits. Community groups, Sierra Club. If you want to learn more of the policy side, NRDC. If you want to learn more about like just straight up environmentalism, just local, something like a Tree People talking about how to build green space and heat island effect. USGBC California has a news board. All of these places have newsletters.
Yeah.
So that's a really good place to start.
That's such a good tip, because you're totally right, because like at NRDC or Tree People, we'll send an email once a week, once every other week, and in it they talk about what they're doing, but they also talk about the news or link to news that's relevant. Correct. You're right, and it's
Heal the Bay. Heal the Bay has been very active with our water in SoCal because of the fires. So I think that, newsletters are great. Looking at different businesses, looking at your own community, talking to your neighborhood council, asking questions, being curious. Books too, just books. There's new books every day. And I'm going to say also listening to your comedy. You'll find out about the news.
So good. Yeah.
Right?
Come see me live. Newsletters of nonprofits is such a good little hack of being like, oh yeah, you got news. That's so great. Okay, here's our second question.
Okay.
Someone did their research. Our second question comes from Bennett in Grand Terrace. I believe follow you on Instagram or did some research and saw that you love to travel. Your partner hosts a travel podcast, a lot of travel in your life. And their question, which is so beautiful, is does your travel help you connect to the climate? And this is a follow-up question, which I think is so great because that is totally an anxiety when you travel. It's like, how do you think about minimize carbon output when you travel? Sometimes I think I'm like individual. I talk about this actually in comedy, and you can find out through my newsletter. But like systems versus individual, and you're like individual change is really great, but only if it drives a little bit towards systems change. So like the amount that we feel guilty to go on a flight is very different than, the statistic I saw recently was the Walton. I don't know if we can include this. Maybe it's too hot of a take, but the Walton family, the Walmart family, have 2 super yachts that have the same emissions as 1,000 stores.
Wow.
Like just operating.
Yeah.
2 super yachts.
Oh, well, Leonardo DiCaprio uses jets. I mean, like I said, it's your choices, and it doesn't make them wrong. They're using their funds for good, like the Waltons do. They're using their mouths as like, you as Esteban, like you use your voice through comedy. Leo uses his voice through documentaries. He's funded nonprofits. So like, I think it comes down to choices. Nobody's perfect. We're not going to be a perfect world. It's like you have to work with what we have. We have to change the system. Again, voting with your dollar, getting on a plane, asking for no plastic cup, trying to find, or bring your own reusable cup.
Yeah.
They may or may not let you use it, but most of the coffee bars let you use it again. During COVID, it was kind of an issue, but bring your reusable bottle, fill up before you get on a flight. Those are the easy things. So yes, my husband has a podcast. I'm going to plug it. Travel with Meaning is a podcast with key notables on it, like CEOs, rock stars, actors, surfers, chefs, talking about how travel has transformed their life and their career. Through my lens of sustainability, and even Michael's, we always ask these questions like about your carbon footprint in traveling. But when I travel now, I look for, especially in cities, transportation. I'm like looking for the EV chargers, no joke, because I'm so embedded and invested in EV charging. I look for the charging. I take pictures. Oh my God, this city has so much charging and so much connectivity and so much local. Look at this. I'm in this Airbnb and in this building, there's charging. Like, how cool is that? And you'll see more EVs on the road. But then there's taxes for vehicles that are gas guzzlers, right? Like in London, there's a tax. But going back to travel, for me, it's like picking a more sustainable hotel, like a hotel that doesn't use plastic, or not just about washing the towels, but went the extra step to make sure that the air quality in that room is cleaner, using HEPA filters. The food that they buy is more local.
Yeah.
Hiring more locals.
Have like a filter for sustainability
100%.
rated. Yeah.
100%. And then there's also websites that can lead you to more green travel. And now there's all sorts of certifications in different countries and cities and states around green hospitality. And what does that mean? And yes, green is a color of Kermit the Frog. I always say that. But Anne, if maybe that's the way we wrap our head about it, as travelers, we see it, maybe we'll adopt that and bring it home.
Yeah.
That's how I look at travel. And then speaking to the community, we love to travel off the beaten path and get into local communities and go into little neighborhoods and local restaurants. And that's the other thing, support your local economy. Don't eat at big box restaurants. I'm not saying not to, but try not to. I mean, if I'm on a road trip, there's only a Starbucks half the time around off the freeway. So I'm going to go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
But if I can choose between going to a local coffee shop or a chain, I want to build that local economy. So that's another thing you can do when you travel is buy from the locals.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
You can follow me on Instagram. I'm Girly Green with the number 1.
Girly Green 1.
Yep.
I'm curious if you have traveled recently somewhere that like made you feel very connected to the world around you.
I just took a road trip. How cool is that? Just in your own state, in your own backyard. I had some unfortunate family things that happened to me, and I just wanted to regroup. And my regrouping is get in nature.
Yeah.
So we drove to the Sequoias.
Oh, I love the Sequoias.
Right? And we just immersed ourselves with the trees and the nature and the water and got into the streams, and we hiked, and I got to hug a few trees.
Yeah.
And I got to feel the air was so different looking at the redwoods and these sequoia trees. This is the lungs of our earth, our rainforests, our tree forests. Like, this is so important to how we live. And if you have access to go on a road trip and get into nature, do it.
Yeah. I love it. Sequoias are so like big in a way that I almost feels to me like spiritual or something. Like you're like
yes,
you're like, oh my gosh, I share earth with this enormous tree that's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you cry when you're in nature like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
If you're seeing a sequoia, you can't help it.
I know. I'm just like bawling and hugging this tree, and it felt so good.
It feels like a reset. Like
100%.
Okay, final question. Even though that's so beautiful. This last question is from Jackie in Santa Paula. Are there any books that have shaped your relationship with the earth or climate or anything? I think this person just loves books. They want some book recommendations, and they even say they could be fiction or nonfiction. Maybe even general media Because I know you worked in PR, you worked in documentaries. As we're
Oh
closing
yeah,
out,
I want to talk about some films. So one of the original films that got me excited about EVs was Chris Payne's Who Killed the Electric Car. Classic, classic. It is so relatable to today. It's unbelievable. And this film was made way back in the day.
Yeah.
Like early adopter. I would also say there's a new film called Common Ground that's about regenerative agriculture. Really great film to watch, to learn about your food. Where does it come from? And then what are we doing around the world to mobilize to build a more sustainable future? So that's another great one.
And that's kind of a sequel-ish to Kiss the Ground.
Yeah,
right?
Kiss the Ground, absolutely. And I
Which is
actually worked
another
with the filmmakers.
Amazing.
When I started my PR career, they were one of my first clients, and we won a Sundance Audience Award together for a film that talked about getting off foreign oil. And we rode around in an algae fuel-carred Mercedes-Benz with Woody Harrelson at Sundance. And we got in so much trouble because we were such renegades in grassroots marketing that we won the Audience Award. That is, I think, the most legit award you could win in a film festival, because that means it was for the people,
It's
by
for
the people.
It's the People's Award.
It's the People's Award.
That's
exactly.
so good.
Back to community. So yeah, I mean, you know, these documentaries definitely shaped me. And I would also say books like by Michael Pollan, Bill McDonough's book Cradle to Cradle is another great one, because there is no way. I mean, there's just so much to read. I would say there's actually a really great group called the Carbonauts. I don't know if you heard about them. It was started by Graham Hill, who started a website way back in the day called Tree Hugger. It was like very early adopter. And he started a group called the Carbonauts, and he actually has a book club on there. So you could even go on the Carbonauts website, look him up. If you're in LA, he has local events, and now he has events all over the world, London, Seattle. So there's different cities. So sign up for his newsletter and you'll get the book club, and it's virtual, and you can follow along, read the book, be a part of the book club, just read the book, whatever.
That's great. That's so good. Okay, so here's some of the things we chatted about. Building community, what it looks like, what Green Wealth Energy is doing, and the way to make sure that some of these solutions and innovations like EVs are accessible to everyone. Some of the ways that we can work together in our community, right? And like a lot of maybe unexpected partnerships of being like, oh my gosh, you can have people over here support people over here, connect them to these resources, connect them to these internships, connect them to these jobs, connect them to these sources of funding, right? This like everyone coming together, this intersectionality of it all. Let's see in my notes, kind of anything else?
I don't think you have to work in sustainability to be sustainable.
Yeah. Ugh,
okay.
I love it.
I think that if you have a business or a business idea, or you work for a company, it's how do you figure out in your business model to do things more holistically that reduces your footprint in that business model. Like you took your comedy on the road and you wove climate into it.
Yeah.
It wasn't that you wanted to do climate comedy. It kind of found you. You kind of found it. It was a choice to create a through line in your work. That's what I'm looking for. So how do I go into, let's say, a multifamily housing owner who has multiple properties, portfolio owner, with Green Wealth's own and operate model, with a program like Charge for All, and get their minds and hearts wrapped around this?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have EV charging. Maybe they didn't think about it. But then they're going to attract the next wave of tenant that does have an EV car or wants an EV car. And is that gig driver, is that person that is a family of four that already owns that EV, and they want the charging where they live, then they know they will live there. So you see, now I'm creating more money for the building owner. I'm creating tenant retention. I'm bringing more value to a property. And we're bringing clean energy to a community to lessen the transportation greenhouse off-gassing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just a solution we're offering to a building. So again, it just ties back to like just teaching people through what your vehicle is, no pun intended, EV vehicles, how to make better choices and how to make their business have a less footprint and be more oriented towards the people that they serve and the people that work for them.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening and watching. And we want to know what you think, and we want you to submit questions.
Yes.
Guest specific questions or just general questions. Like I love person who's like, what are books? I love books. Send me books and media and resources. And so you can always email us. Okay. And that's at hi, H-I, like hello, hi, energy podcast at socalren.org. And you mentioned so many resources. We do this every time, but we're going to be really thoughtful about the things that you talked about, putting in the description and like having those resources there so someone can listen to this and then they can go back, find it and be like, oh my gosh, Who Killed the Electric Car? That was the documentary she mentioned. And they can click it and find out more info there. So if you're listening or watching, know that resources, we will compile those for you. That is it. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. I feel like I laughed. I talked about my professional career. We talked about yours.
Crying
and hugging trees.
Almost cried.